Hey everyone, welcome back to Right Media Group Chronicles, the podcast where we dive into the stories behind successful agencies, the wins, the lessons, and everything in between. Today I'm joined by Nick Jaworski, CEO of Circle Social, a marketing and consulting agency focused on behavioral, healthcare, and recovery organizations. Nick, great to have you on the show.
Hey, Jonathan, appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. So for people hearing about you for the first time, would you mind to explain to them what does Circle Social do?
Sure. Well, 30,000 foot quick overview. We are a large 50 plus person marketing agency, has a consulting wing as well. Originally started off in substance use in the US. I know we got some international listeners. So, substance use or addiction, and broader behavioral health, so psychological, psychiatric issues, and then moved into broader healthcare. So, over past about 10 years, I've built the company from originally just me to, the current size we are today, working with more enterprise level clients.
So you started Circle Social about 2016. What really pushed you into starting your own agency?
There was a couple impetuses. First off was just I had been in the world of education and done a lot of operations from an educational perspective around the world. So Turkey, Vietnam, China, the US. And coming back to the US with education, there's just not as much of a value system here around it in terms of compensation and earning potential. And so I just didn't see the opportunities I had seen abroad. And then a lot of what I did when I was doing turnarounds or startup orgs and trying to get new schools off the ground was the marketing side of things. School systems, educational providers tend to not be very good at marketing at all in terms of enrollment and student acquisition. And so I said, okay, well, I have this really core skill set that I've used to do all these turnarounds and startups. Why don't I just start selling that as a service? And even for the schools I've been working with at the time, sometimes I was working in private schools and I charge anywhere from $25 to $50,000 a year to attend these schools. And my acquisition cost was under $1,000, way back then. It's just so cheap to do digital marketing. Now it's a lot more expensive. I said, look, I'm barely making that much money in a year. Why don't I just do this for schools and get paid for the results I'm getting? And so that launched it. And then also obviously I like working for myself. I like puzzles. I like managing and kind of creating impact and moving things forward. That's why I like the world of startups and the world of turnarounds rather than more established organizations. And so that's exciting to me. And that was a part of the decision making process.
Interesting. And what part of the work are you most proud of right now?
I'm most proud of. I feel really proud of the positive impact that we have.
Hmm.
Circle Social is what's called a benefits corporation, and that was a newer designation within the state of Indiana when I formed the company. So we are actually the third benefits corporation to exist within the state of Indiana. And a benefits corporation has to have a social purpose written into its bylaws. So for me, a profit motive with social purpose are actually intertwined. At the end of the day, why do people pay you for anything? They pay for value, whether you're buying a Nintendo or clothes you like or marketing agency services. That company is delivering value to you, and then people are willing to pay for that value. And so when we have a social purpose that drives value in a certain way, and so then I align the entire business operations around healthcare, originally behavioral health, because we're helping people. People get connected to care. We're having a positive impact in the communities in which we operate, as well as having a positive impact with our clients by helping them grow revenue and help more people. So that was a really important part to see how those pieces work together.
What is it that you do for your clients now? I mean, as we mentioned, it's sort of that healthcare, educational space. So, what is it that you deliver for your clients? What do you help them to achieve?
Sure. So on the marketing side, we're full service. So some
Mhm.
agencies specialize and they niche down in terms of a specialization. They just do SEO, they just do PPC, or they just do Facebook ads. And that's definitely a viable pathway. If you're starting or building an agency, you can build expertise around a channel that way. We went the other way and really niche down in terms of the verticals in which we operate. But our value add and our value prop is that we are full service. So if it's an enterprise level organization, it's anywhere from 5 to 10 times cheaper to hire my entire company versus trying to build an internal team, right? You think that your average SEO specialist is going to cost you $80 to $100,000 a year. A good content writer is $60 to $80,000 a year. A director of marketing can be $120 to $250,000 a year. So I can come in and take all those roles and lump it into a contract and assign a team of 30, 40 people that are all specialized in their areas
Ah, I
that
see.
they just can't do from a cost perspective. Deliver a lot of value by being full service. And then again, our clients are not marketers, they're healthcare providers. They know how to deliver care in the verticals that they're in. So, what does good SEO look like? They have no idea. What channels should they be on? How they should be allocating capital with Facebook versus TikTok versus TV? They have no idea. How do you create a media contract with TV? What's important? And then how do you hire around that? How do you manage those teams? What are the KPIs? What people like, they don't know any of that, right? So we provide that value by basically becoming the entire outsourced marketing department. And rather than a healthcare provider trying to figure all of that out, we've already got it done for them and they're paying a flat fee. They're assigned an account manager. So they're talking with a single person, right? It's not complicated logistically, legally, from an HR risk standpoint. And just from a results standpoint, they know we're going to get results for them. Whereas an internal team, it's a little bit more of a crapshoot because they don't even know what they're looking for. So those are the core components that we're providing for clients.
They can really focus on what they do best, which is the care, right? And you just do what you're best at, which is marketing for them.
Yeah, yeah, and that strategic full service is hard. It's very complicated for providers. I mean, so some of our clients are spending anywhere from $1 million to $5 million a month on their marketing campaigns. You ask the average marketer, what are you going to do with $5 million a month? They don't know, right? What
Oh,
percentage is going to SEO versus PPC versus constant website redesigns versus TV, right? They don't know the answers to those questions. Where we have that level of experience and expertise at this point, where I do know how to allocate $1 million when I'm doing bariatric surgery versus a podiatry office versus outpatient surgery versus a psychiatric hospital, right? Like all of those have slightly different capital allocations and kind of patient journey strategies that we have to have in place. So we know that and we bring that to the table already.
particularly with healthcare, would you say it's quite a sensitive topic to be running ads on specifically? Do you have to be careful in how what wording you put in there?
There's a lot of restrictions around it, particularly within the US. So we have HIPAA compliance laws. And that's another reason that people will hire us because we understand those legal complexities. And we're also liable. So we sign what's called a business associate agreement or a BAA. And that means that I have liability if my team makes a mistake. So it's very serious. Like
Wow.
for millions of dollars if you have a HIPAA breach or a HIPAA violation, patient data becomes exposed, stuff like that. So the fact that we have all these protocols set up and we understand that world gives our clients a lot of peace of mind versus working with another agency. And then there's also platform specific requirements. So like Facebook, for example. So you can't pixel stuff on Facebook. A lot of marketers are used to retargeting campaigns. That's not an option using what
Uh-huh.
data within healthcare in the US. And so that creates a very, very different strategic deployment of campaigns and how we think about those campaigns and what results are tracked because we can't even get that data back sometimes. And then Facebook will say things like, well, you can't make people feel like they have a problem from a healthcare standpoint. And so you can't say, hey, are you drinking too much every day? That's actually a violation of Facebook terms of service. Or an
Wow.
after fix. I can't show here's a patient before treatment, here's a patient after treatment. That is actually against Facebook terms of service. Stuff like that, creates complexity when dealing with healthcare campaigns.
It definitely doesn't sound like a niche anyone can just suddenly get into. You need to have that knowledge and background. Like you said, you can become liable if if you don't promote the business in the proper way or there's a violation of some sort.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot more than just losing the contract and having an upset client. Like you literally have legal liability. They can have legal liability, which means that they could sue you for any liability that they end up with because of our actions, right? Like, so it is a highly regulated industry that you just have to be more careful in than other verticals.
What do your clients usually come to you first for? Is it like marketing performance? Is it operations? What are they hoping to achieve when they're looking for your services, pretty much?
Sure. I mean, everyone wants results, right? At least in the for-profit world. Nonprofits are a little bit more loose sometimes in terms of their
Do you also
goals.
work with nonprofits?
Yeah, about 20% of our portfolio is nonprofit. But I'm sure other marketing agencies can speak to us. The majority of our clients don't come to us because they're reaching a plateau and they just want to get to the next level quicker, or they're looking for a really strong growth partner. We do have those clients that come on board, but it's probably less than 20% again. The vast majority come because there's a problem. The
I
business is
hear.
struggling, their marketing's not working, they can't get patients in the door, they can't find patients, the cost of patient acquisition is too high. And it gets to be a point where the CEO, the investors, or the CMO can't sleep at night. Like that's when we get the calls. A lot of
Yeah.
our clients, our sales cycle is often somewhere between 3 months and 12 months. And, I just had a client that came on I've been talking to for 3 years. They know
Wow.
we have a good relationship, but why is that client coming on now? Because they have a major problem where
Mm.
their volume of patients isn't enough to pay the bills. And they think it's a marketing issue. And so now I get a frantic call and say, hey, can you start working with us? We want to get something going the next 2 weeks. Right. We've been having a conversation for 3 years. We talk to each other all the time. And then now they're moving forward. And that's why it's those pain points that tend to drive a lot of switches with marketing companies.
Where do you see things break down most often before marketing can even do its magic, pretty much?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So I talk to clients and other marketers about this all the time. We can't market thin air. You can't just put lipstick on a pig. You have to have a quality product or service, or a differentiated product or service, right? Quality doesn't have to be your differentiator. It could be speed, it could be cost, it could be convenience, right? There's all these things that you can bring to the table, but we have to have something. And especially in my world, healthcare is highly competitive in the US. So if I look at outpatient surgery or dermatology or addiction treatment, there are 30 to 40 providers within driving distance of any area in a major city. So that means that you have 29 competitors that they could go to fairly conveniently. Why are they going to choose you? There has to be a reason. What we never want to do is market what I call vanilla care or vanilla treat. It's just like saying, hey, are you guys hungry? We sell hamburgers. That's not a marketing tactic that's going to be successful. But at the same time, I can't gussy that up. Like if you are just selling slop, I can't make it look pretty and try and sell it, because what happens is then you actually accelerate the downfall of the business. So you push messaging out there. People are like, oh, this looks great. Sounds amazing. You guys are talking up so well. I'll go try it. And like, oh, it's horrible. Like this is not at all what you're actually delivering. And so whether it's a hamburger or whether it's healthcare services, it's the same thing. You have to deliver on the promises that you're making into the communities. And so you have to be real about what you do better or differently than competitors. That has to be accurately and honestly marketed into the communities in a way that's effective. So you're getting in front of the right people, getting the right message, creating urgency, getting them to take action, but you got to follow that up. So we have a lot of work we do with clients around that piece. And then there's logistical operations, right? How is the website structured and set up? How can they schedule an appointment? Is it easy, or are you creating friction and barriers to that sign up? What's your call team doing? Or is it just a front desk office woman? Is she answering the phone, or is she missing calls? Well, if I've got a toothache as a dentist and you don't answer the phone, I'm not going to call you back. I'm going to call the other dentist until I find
Yeah.
someone that can get in, right? So you have to have your operations set up on top of what you're doing from a marketing standpoint, because otherwise it's a leaky boat. I'm just pushing inquiry volume into a provider that's dropping the ball. And it might not be just something as simple as answering the phone. So that's a staffing issue. It could be the fact that they're rude on the phone, or they don't know how to handle a sensitive conversation with someone that has a suicidal loved one. Like, what do you do? How do you handle that conversation? Very important skill set that has to be learned. And so if you're not training those teams and training those people to answer the phones, all these different pieces are very, very important for your marketing to be success. Marketing is not what I said, it's not an independent variable. It's highly dependent on your product, your service, your business fundamentals, and the surrounding logistics to inquiry and admissions generation.
Yeah, of course. No, that makes total sense. How do you help them to, let's say you have noticed a leak in the system, but it's sort of out of your reach, right? Let's say it is the receptionist that's been too rude or is not answering the phone call. How do you really position that conversation with the client, and how can you like help them in that sort of area specifically?
Yeah.
Just an example.
Lots of good questions. So there's two pieces for us. That is, again, one of our value propositions is we have this consulting wing, because my original background is kind of full scale business operation. So I was able to bring that in. We started noticing these issues, whether it was MarTech integrations or people answering the phone or the way that things were being communicated and the speed through which someone was moving through an admissions or an enrollment sign up process. All these things I started to see. And so we actually have solutions for that, right? From the consulting that I can go and say, hey, you guys are going to pay me $10,000, $20,000. We will come in and re-overhaul your entire call systems admissions process, or we will overhaul your interdepartmental communication or your technology infrastructure. So we provide those services, which is unique, but we can also speak to them because we do them all the time. So we can identify where the breakdown is. If you don't have enough patient volume coming in, it could be a marketing problem. It could be a call center problem. It could be the fact that your providers, your doctors, your nurses, your therapists are actually not good. And so people come in, they meet them, and they leave right away, right? All these different things could be problems, but we're able to diagnose that because we have that broad breadth of expertise. And then a part of that is the data component. So how do we know what the problem is? Well, in like real simple, let's say we're seeing patient volume go down. Well, I'll start and look at the marketing because that's usually what we're responsible for. Has call volume changed? If inquiry volume hasn't changed, it's probably not a marketing issue. I'll then dig down a little bit though. Let's check out the qualified inquiry volume. Are we getting the same amount of inquiries, but has the percentage of qualified changed? Okay. So if those things are on track, then what's the next step? Then I'm going to look at the call center. What's our conversion rate on the call center? Did we hire new reps? Do we have a new channel that people don't understand? Is there a new service offering that we're doing that isn't converting as well? So I look at the call center, we look at conversions there. If all of that's on track, then I'll start looking at the clinical. I'll say, okay, well, we're getting patients in the door. Are they no showing? Are they showing up and then leaving right away? But it's all data points, right? And so a good organization is tracking that. We will often help clients build out those tracking systems and those dashboards so that we can then easily identify where the problem is, because it's often not in the same place.
Yeah, I mean, main thing about tracking anything is you have data to work off it. Otherwise, how do you know what you're going to fix, right?
Yeah, it's a big challenge. So data is very valuable, but then also you have to have vision, you have to have strategy. That's a big thing I run into with executives these days is they think the answer is always in the data, and it's not.
Uh-huh.
Oftentimes, what got you here isn't going to get you there. And so, real simple examples. Let's say that the business grew from one location to two, and their primary patient acquisition strategy was Google Ads. Okay, great. But there's only so much search volume in a given community. There's only so many people searching for addiction treatment or a gastro sleeve surgery. It's a limited number of people on a channel for, let's say, Google. So if we want to grow and get a third location or a fourth location, the Google volume's finished. We can't get any more. So now we have to move into Facebook or TV or whatever. But I don't have any data that tells me how to manage Facebook or what's going to work on Facebook. You don't have any data that tells you what's going to happen on TV. You don't have any data that tells you should do Facebook or TV or radio, right? So there's lots of situations in life and in business growth where data will not have the answer. You actually have to have some kind of strategic thesis. Or, I mean, sometimes they'll partner with an agency like us. So let's say we get small providers and they don't know what to do. So their PPC is not scaling anymore. They need to do something else. Well, we do know, right? For various verticals of healthcare, we can tell you, okay, actually, now that you've got diminishing returns there, you need to do Facebook next, or you need to do TV next. So we will have the data. So maybe other people might have the data. But there's always going to be situations where you don't, or the data is not very clean, or it's not very directional. So I always caution providers not to obsess about the data as much as a lot of them do. And then especially when you get into more sophisticated marketing campaigns, I've got multiple touch points, right? I'm touching patients at all these different aspects of the patient journey across channels. And so there is no single attribution. We're not going to use final attribution to really understand our patient journey campaigns. So you're always going to have this kind of noise and these question marks and this uncertainty in the data. And that's okay. Like that's as long as we're profitable, as long as things are working, we just need to be comfortable. And part of that is just having certainty around our strategic decisions. Do we have the right audience with the right message, with the right timing? And are we delivering on the promises that we're making? So we're building up a positive reputation in our communities. If all those things are in line, it will start to work. We just have
Do
to give
you
it a little bit of time.
Yeah. Do you have an example of a campaign where, well, let's say you were in a situation where you couldn't rely on the data and you had to take
Mm.
that strategic initiative?
Sure, tons of examples. Let me take one we did last year or so. We went into a provider and they were having problems where they were limited on their channels. So they were just using Google Ads, SEO, and then boots on the ground, physical outreach. So those were kind of their three channels. So they had no data on anything else or what could possibly work. The data that they were trying to run was all final attribution and it was short time frame. So they're looking in 30-day windows. Well, 30 days is usually not enough for a lot of, especially multi-channel campaigns. So we went in, we added Facebook, we added X, we added LinkedIn campaigns. Then we overhauled their entire brand messaging strategy around three core differentiators. And then we integrated their clinical, that whole brand messaging component, but what they did well with the marketing that we were doing with their boots on the ground business development team. And so we created a lot of collateral for that and then also built an event based strategy around it. So we started having online webinars and in person interviews and in person trainings using the clinical team, but then through marketing, promoting it and then having follow up with their business development, right? So within 3 months, we had a 25% growth in total admissions across the entire organization because all of those pieces were coming into play. It doesn't happen overnight, right? It was a 90-day window to really start seeing those results, but we did. And then same thing, could we track it back to like, was this coming from Google Ads or LinkedIn or business? Like, no, like that was not something that is granularly trackable. But did we see the rise in qualified calls? Did we see the rise in in terms of admissions overall? Yes, that was all there. We also were able to track additional referral partners. So they had community referral partners, like these hospitals, for example, that their team had been trying to build a relationship with for almost 3 years and had been unsuccessful. But by defining our messaging strategy, by pinging them through different channels, and then by adding value, right? By saying, okay, how can we help them versus constantly trying to get them to help you. So that was the trainings we provided. So they got knowledge value that built thought leadership and expertise. It's also a value add because healthcare providers need what are called CEUs or continuing education credits. And so those are things they have to find or usually pay for. And so by offering that, that was also a value add and a draw, and people appreciated that. So I have to cultivate those relationships. So all of those pieces, and that's, I think, a really good example of not just a successful campaign, but strategically like what we bring to the table as our value prop is that complexity and that holistic comprehensive management of multi-channel multi-touch campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. Great example there. In how long did you achieve that? Did you say 3 months?
Yeah, it was 90 days.
Wow, look at that. And what, 25% increase overall?
Right.
So there is power to that multi-channel approach, but obviously being strategic and obviously you having the experience and how you can manage all of them together and how they correlate with like the touch points you have with the consumers. It's just working magic, clearly.
Yeah, it's very helpful, right? We do have a lot of success stories, but then of course you have times where it doesn't work as well or it's incremental. Like that provider, there was a lot of opportunity because there were so many things they weren't
Hmm.
doing well. Whereas if we go into a provider that they are doing a lot of things really well, well, then we're maybe going to get 5% growth, in a 90 to 120-day
Of course,
window
it
because
depends on
there's
the
just not
individual.
as
Yeah.
much room to move.
You obviously are very thorough and you do these audits on the business, and there is that benefit of having everything under one umbrella because you know how to do an audit and you know the cracks in the system that you need to be looking at. My question to you is, what happens if they scale without building out that foundation first, or there's cracks in the system? Because I mean there's many agencies out there that will just start running ads without actually doing an audit on the whole system and checking if there are any cracks. So what's really your opinion on that?
That's part of learning, I think, as you're building an agency and all companies learn it. I always recommend patience. A lot of people want to build a company tomorrow. They want to get rich tomorrow. And every once in a while, people get lucky and do something like that. But you look at Coca Cola or Nike or Starbucks or any really major organization or brand, they've taken decades to build what they have. It wasn't this rapid copy paste growth. And so I always say, how can you deliver value? How can you do things well? How can you be sure that your systems and processes or your results are good? So, like what I did when I first started the company is we did a lot of stuff for free or at cost. if we weren't quite clear that it would work or that we'd be able to get results. So I didn't go and say, hey, we're going to start running Facebook campaigns for you guys and pay us our 10 to 15% management fee, right? I originally went in and say, hey, you know what? I'll do this for free for you guys. I just want to try some things out. If you guys want to pay for the ad spend, not super confident if we're gonna be able to get the results we think we can, but if you want to partner with us, we'll give you a benefit by giving you free services, and you'll give us the benefit by letting us try some things and learn. Right? We did the same thing when I started building out the consulting wing. We came in, I just had clients cover flights and accommodations. We didn't even charge for services. But then once we started to deliver services and we got really good results and the clients saw the impact on that, then one, they became a really strong referral source for us. But two, we went with confidence. We're like, we know that this works. And so here we're going to charge for it. And then, here's how much it is, right? So that leading with value and that willingness to be patient and just build things over time and test your systems and processes. And so I did that at every stage of the company. Like we doubled in our growth every year for the first 6 years, I think it was. So revenue and staffing just doubled every year. That is really rapid, really stressful, really straining growth. And we could have technically grown faster than that, but I would shut our marketing off. I would stop or start pushing off sales calls or asking them to, reconnect in a couple months and see if they still need services. And obviously they never did because they needed something now. But I did that on purpose because I could feel when things were getting too much, like we didn't have a project management system. That became a huge bottleneck. And so when we got to the size, it was about 15 employees. I'm like, I need a project management system in here. We paused our marketing. We paused our client acquisition. And we built that system. We tested it. We built the trainings for it. We had everyone using it well. And then we started taking on clients again. So, and we do the same thing with our clients. We see them break all the time. We work with a lot of private equity. Private equity will come in, they'll buy like 2 facilities. And then 12 months later, they've got 10. Well, to go from 2 to 10, I mean, that's a 5x increase in operation, staffing, and everything. And nothing works the same at scale. You can't copy paste. Like what you need from an infrastructure standpoint to manage a regional or a national organization with 10 facilities is very, very different from what you needed with 2. It's the same thing on the marketing level. I have to build in layers of leadership. I have to build in middle management. I have to bring in HR. I have to bring in project management, all these pieces. And you don't know, you haven't done this before. A lot of organizations haven't done it before. So sometimes you got to test stuff. Maybe it's not the right time to bring in the HR person, or maybe the leader you brought in wasn't the right one. Patience is key to success for me. I know that's hard for a lot of people, but it works.
You're basically talking about scaling, but scaling smart, right? You scale a little bit and then you improve on your internal processes, and then you scale some more and constantly becoming more efficient rather than suddenly getting a sufflux of leads, you're closing them and you're really under delivering, you're losing the quality of your service and everything goes kaput pretty much.
Right. Right, exactly, because it hurts yourself in the long run. Again, are there people that get lucky? I do consider it lucky, where they scaled from 2 to 10 or they scaled from 5 employees to 50 employees overnight. Every once in a while people, by hook or by crook make it through that, but the vast majority don't. The vast majority fail. And so when I think about data, I'm always thinking about probability, right? There's no 100% guarantees, but there are definitely risks that are going to have a significant potential risk of it falling apart and blowing up. You don't want to go that route. If you've got a 10% chance of success, why would you take that risk? Why don't you say, why don't we slow this down and it's going to take us 12 months instead of 2, but I've got an 80% chance of success because I'm doing this slowly, with attention and with the right pieces in place. To me, that's the smarter play.
Yeah, it's sort of like a conflict a little bit though, isn't it? Because I mean, everyone sort of wants growth, and then you're saying no to people because you're like, I will lose on my deliverability. It's sort of that conflict, right? How can you say no? You wanted this all along, and suddenly you're in a position that you have to,
Right.
decline
Yeah.
clients, which is a a
Yeah.
weird one to be in.
It's weird, but our average retention is like 3+ years for a client, and the
Nice.
average for most marketing agencies is less than a year. Like a lot of agencies have a 50% turnover rate among their clients every year, annually. That means they're picking them up, losing them, picking them up, losing them. And I think very much one of the reasons for that is maybe it's infrastructure and results and stuff that you've talked about before, but a lot of it is just being upfront and realistic and patient. There's a lot of times where we will tell clients like, no, you know, they're willing to give us more money for SEO services, or they want to do a higher PPC spend, which means we get more of an agency fee, right? but we'll say, hey, that's not the right move. We're looking at what's going on with you. We've seen this before at your size of company. You need more call center reps, or you need more boots on the ground staff, or we should be investing in some technology infrastructure before we do anything more on the marketing end. And because we do that, because we really look out for our clients' best interests, even when we're losing financial incentive from it, a lot of our clients respect that. But it's also good business because that's why we have a 3+ year retention rate. They stick with us because they trust us. They know we're putting their interests first. And that
Yeah.
ultimately serves our business. Yeah, did we lose 2, 3 months of additional revenue? Potentially. But then we also kept that client for an additional couple of years where if we had told them to do that and things had blown up, we would have lost them. So I would have taken
Yes,
2 months of revenue
exactly.
and treated it for 2 years. That doesn't make business sense.
If you think about the long-term ROI, you clearly, picking the good side. I mean, you're already committing to somebody who's stayed with you for a while rather than just focusing on these new people and then losing on your deliverability. Completely applaud that. Talking a little bit about that beyond the data, I know it's a very passionate subject for you as well and something you feel very closely aligned to. Where do you think leaders misread data the most, and what does that cause them to do wrong? I really wanted to speak about that as well.
We covered some of that already. A lot of it is, again, thinking the data has all the answers. It
Uh-huh.
often doesn't. Another example I would give would be in our world. So if you look at Google Ads, PPC, bottom of funnel, those are people that are ready to make a decision. And often for a number of our healthcare verticals, it's an urgent decision. They need services now because they are in pain, they need help, whatever it is. So when that call comes through, it's pretty transactional. It's like, okay, I understand you have this pain. We can solve that. We have space available. We take your insurance. Come on in tomorrow. That's what I need to do on the phone. Pretty quick, pretty to the point, right? Now, let's say I'm running a Facebook or a TikTok campaign. That's very different. These people are not looking for services now. They
Mhm.
might have a little bit of urgency, but not a lot. And so they are shopping around. They're looking at
Mhm.
4 to 5 different providers. They're shortlisting people. They're calling. That conversation on the phone has to be rapport building. It has to give your value proposition and your differentiators because they're going to talk to 3 or 4 other people after they get off the phone with you. And if you don't leave a lasting impression, if you haven't built rapport, and if they don't understand how you are uniquely designed to serve them, they're going to go with the provider they think that is. And so in that situation, your PPC data doesn't tell you how to handle the people coming in from your Facebook and your TikTok campaigns. And
Yeah.
what can easily happen is they'll say, okay, well, Facebook and TikTok don't work, right? We are getting calls, but they're bad quality or they don't convert. Again, your data that you have for PPC doesn't show you how to train your call team or your front desk people to answer the different kind of inquiry that's coming off of these other channels. And so that's usually one of the best examples I can give around being really, really careful about data and what it tells you or doesn't tell you. Another example is timing and scope. So I grew up in Wisconsin. That's where I'm from. And so it's about 6 months of winter, more or less. And if
Wow.
you look at the real estate market, when do you sell homes? Across the world, most homes sell in good weather, spring and summer. They're generally not selling in the winters. And so if I took a snapshot of 6 months of real estate marketing data in Wisconsin, just in the winter, I'd say, oh, this isn't a great market. Not a lot of homes sell here. I shouldn't invest as a company here. Well, you can't do 6 months of data actually does not give you any real read or clarity on how the Wisconsin real estate market works. You need a minimum of 12 months of data to really understand the market. So not just the type of data you have, but the amount of data, it's the time frames you're pulling that data from, it's the comparisons that you're using. So I always say the data is a starting point, but it can't tell you everything. And there has to be a strategy, there has to be a thesis, there has to be direction. And that comes from humans making smart decisions. It also delves into AI. I'll have a lot of executives they're having AI tools mine their data, and the AI says we should do that. Well, AI is only you only told it to look at 6 months of data, or you're telling it to analyze your marketing strategy, except all of your previous strategy was bottom of funnel, and now we're trying to add top and mid funnel. And so it has no data to build off a real plan for you because you're feeding it the wrong information. You have to be very, very careful. So I would say go beyond the data, think strategically, really think through like what you're looking at, where you want to go, and make those big bets, even if the data doesn't have an answer for you, because it's those big bets with conviction that actually make people successful most of the time.
Taking a step back to that multi-channel approach that you mentioned, what would you say is the common mistake when teams try to scale on one channel harder rather than that multi-channel approach?
Different pieces based on the size of the business. So I give an example. If like let's take just something that everyone's familiar with. Let's say that I'm a plumber and I'm just selling my services. I'm going around plumbing.
Mhm.
Well, there's like 100 people a day that are looking for plumbing services on Google, let's say, right? So I only need 2 or 3 customers a day. So there's 100 out there. That means that I can fill my pipeline and build a successful business really, really easily just for myself. But now let's say I want to scale and grow that business and I want 50 plumbers. Well, there's only 100 searches on Google a day. I don't have enough volume on Google to fill up that many plumbers. So where do I find that volume? It's going to be on other channels. It's going to be referral sources. It's going to be Facebook. It's going to be TV, whatever. There's a certain volume of people. So you're always going to get diminishing returns on any channel at some point. And then, of course, no business scales to the moon. I mean, there's only so many people looking for plumbing at all on any channel at any given day or point in time, right? So a business can only get so big within the locale. Yeah, me and my daughter went camping a couple of years ago, and they had an ice cream shop there. I walk her through this stuff all the time, and she was like, I don't know, 8 years old or something. But I say, look, where are we? How many people live in this area? She's like, oh, this town has like 1,000 people in it. And I'm like, so how many people do you think are buying ice cream in a given month? And she goes, well, probably not that many, right? I'm like, so as a business, would you make more money in this small little camping community or building an ice cream shop downtown Indianapolis? She goes, oh, well, you make a lot more money in downtown Indianapolis, right? So you have a fixed market, right? Based on the area that you're in, the volume of people searching for services, whatever. So that all goes into your channel strategy. And then you want to think multi-touch. So when you look at a lot of just really basic marketing research, they'll often tell you that for higher end purchases, you need a minimum of 7 to 12 touches. You have to build trust. Marketing is very much about building trust. I think people misunderstand that. You can't build trust by talking to them one time. Yeah, I always give the example of 10 people in a room. Let's say you go into a room and you're selling whatever you're selling, financial services, marketing services, whatever. And you say, hey, my name's Nick. Here's my card. You need something, give me a call. I don't know you from Adam. I don't know your results. I don't know if anyone's ever used you. That one touch is not going to get you anywhere in 99% of cases. You do is show up to those meetings every week, get to know those people, get some of those clients, have some of those clients recommend you to other people in the room, showcase for some of your results, maybe give a presentation to the group. All of those touch points and the different touch points that you're having there are ultimately what builds trust and builds that relationship so they have confidence in choosing you. And this is
Sure.
very important. I often say there's a linear relationship between the cost of a service and the amount of trust that needs to be built. If I'm buying a candy bar off of the rack, while I'm waiting to check out my groceries and it costs me $1, there's no risk there. If I don't like the candy bar, I'll throw it away. I lost $1. Who cares? But if I'm spending $10,000 on an insurance deductible to come and use your surgical services, or I mean, it's a surgery, right? If it goes wrong, my life is at
Yeah.
stake. It's not even monetary, it's a risk, or it could be time. Like whatever that risk is, the bigger the risk is for the consumer or for the patient in my world, the more trust that has to be built, which requires more touch points, which requires longer time frames. And so all of that goes into our marketing channel strategy. We want to think, where is the audience? If they're on that channel, we want to be there. Where are they in the patient journey or the decision-making cycle? Like Facebook is a lot of consideration, right? It's not urgency. Whereas Google is generally urgency. And so our message has to change based on the channel, based on the psychology of the people using those channels when thinking about services.
My sort of follow up question to something you said earlier is when there's that close proximity to, let's say, another healthcare profession, how do you work around that? Do you still, because you're sort of competing against your client's ad budget if you do go with that close proximity? How
Yeah.
does it exactly work in your world?
Yeah, that's actually been a challenge for us from a growth standpoint originally because we tend to have clients that cover the same market. So some of the healthcare verticals we cover, like a lot of it's local, so it's usually not too big of a deal. But for some people that are covering like a 150-mile radius or an entire state, If you look like a residential addiction treatment provider, for example, they're usually pulling people from the entire state. So it's a big question for clients. It's like, well, you're working with our competitor in this state as well. The answer to that is if you're not differentiated, if you can't tell me why we should be coming to you and not them, that's the
Mm,
fundamental problem that needs to be solved. It's not us. You want to come to us because we know this market, we know this vertical, we know what works, we know how to allocate the capital, we know what the KPIs are, we know how to run these campaigns. So the fact that we're working with your competitors is actually a huge value add to you because anyone else that you hire, if you say, okay, well, other people aren't working with our competitors, that means that they don't know your market, they don't know your vertical, they don't know the challenges specific to your area, your geography, your patient base. So there's a huge advantage from a cost standpoint in terms of the results we can get and how quickly we can get those results working with us. But then that other piece of you can't sell the same thing. Yeah, if you're selling vanilla care, that is going to
mm,
be a challenge. I mean, obviously we're ethical and we're not going to somehow have our clients lose out internally, right? We're always going to do the best for every one of our clients, regardless of if they're across the street from each other or not. But the reality is has to be that differentiation. And so I'll often
mhm,
give the analogy like Elvis. So let's say I am the promoter for Elvis Presley. Well, let's say that you're a new up and coming star in Nashville. You want to work with the promoter for Elvis because, again, that person's clearly successful. They clearly did a good job. But is the promoter going to promote you the same way they promote Elvis? Absolutely not. You're not Elvis, and you shouldn't be, right?
mm.
So that's the way they should think about it, and that's usually what we walk clients through when they ask those questions because they do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And in regards to the clients, like how do clients find you right now, or how do you find clients? What sort of channels work best for you?
Yeah, we talked about it back then in our pre-calls. We
Yeah, we
have
did a
an
little bit.
inbound strategy. We build a lot of content. We push a lot of that content out there as training videos, blogs, social media posts, etc. And we promote that pretty heavily. And that's where most people find us. So we do get referrals and stuff like that too, of course, but the vast majority is people coming across our content, which is very high quality, very value added. We give them really good information on what works, what doesn't work, things to try, how the industry is changing, what we're seeing, all that kind of stuff. So people start to follow us. And then once they have one of those pain points, one of those sleepless nights, then they'll usually
Yeah.
call and want to move forward. I don't have like an internal sales team. Some agencies do that. They try that method. I've not been successful in building a sales team. It's not my area of expertise in terms of that outreach on the agency level. And our lead generation has just done well enough for us so far. So it's very much value add, very much inbound in terms of what's been successful for us.
I'm suspecting you also do a lot of networking and speaker events. You come across as somebody who'd be great at that. So I'm suspecting that's what's going on as well on the sidelines.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I do attend conferences and events, and that is helpful. Again, though, most of that aligns with our content strategy. When I attend a conference, like a lot of people know me already. I have a podcast, which we talked about. I will, on the consult side, I'll walk into an organization and there's people I don't know who they are, but a lot of them will know me because our podcast is actually very well listened to. And we will have executive teams that tell their staff that they have to listen to our podcast. Like it's a required part of their job training. So yes, so that does kind of dovetail with part of the successes is being out there, and that has gotten me speaking gigs. So I do speak at industry conferences. I'm not applying to those. I get invited to them because people know that I know what I'm talking about. They can hear it, they can see it, they know the results that we get. They talk to other people in the industry, right? So all of that works together for sure.
Awesome, Nick. Thank you so much for sharing. My last sort of question for you is, what is the plan for 2026 for your agency? What's the goal
Yeah,
there?
yeah. Good question. So we're looking at expanding a lot of our enterprise level contracts. We have a number in the pipeline right now. But what I've been doing with the company is some of the spaces that we're in, we're either kind of topping out with what I'd consider to be enterprise level clients, or we're still trying to get our foot in the door in those areas. So we've built out more lower tier offerings, so a lot more lower and mid
Uh-huh.
market, for smaller providers. And that's harder as an agency because to make the same amount of revenue to support the infrastructure that we have and the expertise that we have, we need a lot of the smaller contracts. And that's a lot more complexity, right? That's a lot more conversations. That's a lot more management. This is logistics internally to project management, all that stuff. So that's something I'm working on. And then that sales piece is something that we're still working on too. We do very well on the inbound side. I haven't been very successful in outbound sales for us in particular. And so I'm trying some more different things in terms of cold outreach. We haven't done that before. We did a lot of kind of high value outreach. We're partnering with some other individuals on the consulting side that do have more executive level experience and trying that from the sales angle of things. So those two pieces is we're trying to really work on sales and then see what our kind of multi-tiered offerings are for different sizes of providers.
Awesome. Nick, thank you so much for sharing all the gems. If people wanted to connect with you to find out more about your services, where could they look?
Sure. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So Nick Jaworski, LinkedIn. That's where a lot of people engage with me and find me. Otherwise, you can always just contact me through my email, nick@circlesocialinc.com.
To everyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the like, subscribe, and drop a comment with your favorite takeaway.